Screencast 5 follows on directly from Screencast 4. In Screencast 4 we looked at doing internal analysis through functional analysis. In this screencast we're going to look at value chain analysis as a way of carrying out internal analysis. So, value chain analysis, as we said in the last screencast, is a tool that allows the firm or the organisation to understand the parts of its operations that create value and those that do not. It's also a template that can be used to understand where an organisation has developed strengths, competencies, to pursue its business model. And this will be important when we come to week 3 and we look at strategic options. It allows us to look at different ways that an organisation can pursue its business level strategy. Now, we've talked already briefly in Screencast 3 when we looked at the building blocks of competitive advantage. We talked about low cost and differentiation strategies. We will talk about these in more detail next week, and we will use the value chain to help us explain that. But the focus for today's screencast and the screencast now is that we are going to consider how we can use value chain as a tool for internal analysis. So, the value chain is broken down into 2 sets of activities: primary activities and support activities. So if we begin with primary activities are those which are concerned with a product's or a service's physical creation, right? So if it's a pair of trainers, a pair of shoes that Adidas make, which primary activities are involved with the creation, the making of those shoes. Okay. If it's a gym, which is a service product, what processes are involved in the creation of that service? Okay, it will be a bit different than for a physical product. Secondly, it asks us to consider how a product or service is sold and distributed to buyers. So this is marketing, distribution and sales. And again, the process will be different for products because that is a physical good. It's an actual object which needs to be moved and distributed to customers, whereas a gym going to the gym is a different kind of product. It's a service, and that is going to require a different kind of production and distribution process. And the third is after the product is sold, what is the customer service and support after the product or the service is sold. So those are the primary activities, and we'll look at the value chain model in a minute to try and explain how these things fit together. And the support activities are the second category, and these are those activities which provide support necessary for the primary activities to take place. So let's look at the value chain. So you will see different models of the value chain, but they will all contain these essential activities. So let's start with primary activities first. So these are the primary activities in the orange line or continuum here. So what this shows us is that we begin here and we end here. So this is about the product's path from design through to production, through to marketing and selling, through to customer service. So let's think about this. So if we take a manufacturer of sports shoes, then research and development is an important stage for them. This is the design so that the shoe looks good. It's also the design so anatomically and physiologically it suits people. So there is design work here. There are physiologists and anatomicians involved in this. There are a number of different professionals. So in this process, what you have under research and development is the design of products for Under Armour or Adidas or any organisation like that will involve human resources. How does Nike recruit or Adidas recruit and train the people that work in its research and development centres? Okay, so this is a primary activity which is involved in the production of the good or the service, and it begins right at the start here, research and development. But for research and development to work, we need human resources. We need to be able to recruit and develop the people. So this support activity supports research and development. We will also be using IT to develop using CAD, computer aided design, and other systems. And increasingly in research and development, and increasingly sports shoe manufacturers are using technology like 3D printing. So they're collaborating with specialist 3D printing businesses to help them develop their trainers so that they don't need to be manufactured in a factory in different parts of the world. They can be printed using 3D printing at a 3D printing shop very close to where consumers are going to be buying their products. So what we can see is just by looking at research and development, which is a primary activity involved in the creation of a good or a service, using a sports shoe example, we can see that information systems and human resources support the research and development activity. Right? So here what we're looking at is what resources does the company have for research and development? How much does it spend on it? What facilities does it have? How many patents has it taken out? And I mentioned earlier in the lecture today that Nike takes out many patents each year on technology that it invents. So that's research and development. So Nike has its research and development function in Beaverton in Oregon, Portland, USA, but it doesn't make its trainers and its shoes in Beaverton in Oregon, Portland, USA. Its production is largely outside of the United States of America. And Adidas, which is a German company, most of its production is outside of Germany. Not all, but most. So production, neither Nike or Adidas or any major producer of sports shoes really from a kind of, apart from maybe Li-Ning and Anta, produce their goods in the country where the company is headquartered. So Nike and Adidas produce their goods, their services in factories in China, Taiwan, Bangladesh, Vietnam, where wages tend to be lower than wages are in the USA. So this helps them reduce their costs. So this is an efficiency measure that they have taken, thinking about one of the 4 building blocks. Now, after production, so the goods are produced, and in doing this, they need the right human resources to do that. Materials management, sourcing materials, and making sure that they are available for production are important. And information systems to liaise between Nike's design team and the factory that produces these goods to give them the designs so that they know what to work to. This is important. So again, support activities are important here. But Nike and Adidas, they have all become efficient and have developed competency in outsourcing production. Outsourcing means when a business pays another business to do part of its production. Okay, so they have strengths in outsourcing of production. That does generate issues for them in terms of weakness, because there are many protests in many countries about the low wages and the poor working conditions that there are in some of the factories that Nike especially, but also Adidas and other manufacturers of sports goods, the conditions in the factories that they use in countries outside the USA are often quite poor and the pay is quite low. So that is a reputational issue or weakness for some of these companies. So we've seen research and design and production, marketing and sales. So obviously once the shoes are made, they need to be marketed and they need to be sold. So we're looking for what evidence there is here for a business like Nike. Well, Nike is a $30 billion organization. Its turnover is $30 billion a year. It spends at least 10% of its turnover on marketing. So Nike's marketing budget is something like $3 billion US. So it has huge marketing resources and it has a track record of innovative marketing, ambush marketing, sponsorship and endorsements by major sports stars in major sports. It has a strong track record in that. And in terms of sales, well, it's the leading sports company in the world in terms of the number of trainers and items it sells. Its turnover is very high. And it also has sophisticated techniques for distributing its products to the companies and the shops and the businesses that sell their products. Now, customer service is less important for Nike and Adidas. Customer service is very important when the product that you are buying is very, very expensive. So Nike trainers may be fairly expensive, but they are not as expensive as buying, for example, a new car. So in the car industry, after sales customer service is very important, but in the sports retail market, it is less important. If we were looking at a gym, a fitness gym, then customer service after a member has joined a gym is very important, and we would need to see evidence of customer service and what customer service is being carried out. So what we need to understand then is that the value chain is made up of primary activities, and these are concerned with the activities. So research and development is an activity, production is an activity, marketing and sales is an activity, and customer service is an activity. We are interested in data and evidence on the resources and the competencies that the organisation has at each stage in the value chain for primary activities, and how it has developed strengths and competencies in the support activities that enable these primary activities. Okay, so that is the value chain explained. And what we've also seen is that Nike doesn't itself do, or Adidas doesn't itself do all of these primary activities. It does research and development. It doesn't itself, Nike and Adidas themselves do not produce the goods, the trainers, the shoes. They actually have third-party factories in other countries make them, which are not part of Nike or Adidas, but they do the marketing and sales in-house. They control that themselves, and they don't do much customer service because it's not as important in this industry. So what we can see is primary activities, Nike and Adidas, and for this industry, the particular skills and strengths and resources and competencies which are important are around research and development and marketing and sales. At the minute, production and manufacturing is not a core competence because it is outsourced to somebody else to produce, and because of the nature of the business, customer service is less important. Okay, now this value chain would look different for different businesses and business sectors within the sports industry. So this looks very similar then to the slide I showed you for functional analysis in Screencast 4. So here we can see in the left hand column the different activities which are set out in the value chain. So here we have the three support activities, the 4 support activities. So human resource management, materials management, information systems and company infrastructure. They are the 4 support activities, and here we have the 4 primary activities. And just as for functional analysis, what we are doing is we are saying for each activity, what resources and competencies are there? This might be the basis of strengths. Is there anything that it doesn't do very well, or are there any missing resources or competencies which we could say are weaknesses? So I showed you this diagram before. So I said that what you as students could do is, if we begin up at 1, we need to review the organisation's recent past performance. Now, to be able to do that, we need to identify what sources of information exist about the organisation's past performance. This might be online databases such as Passport, which I've talked to you about and which you can use through Sheffield Hallam University Library Gateway, or it could be you need to look at annual reports for the organisation, which you will need to look for yourselves. Or it could be that you find information in newspapers, the business pages of newspapers. Again, you will need to look for that yourself. Now, is the recent past performance good or bad? Right? And if it's good, can you say what the underlying internal factors might be? What is the organisation doing well? Where does it have strengths that is allowing it to perform well, to have good results? If it is performing badly, what are the underlying internal weaknesses which might be contributing to this bad performance, right? So by thinking about number 2, we can move to 2A, which is identifying the strengths and weaknesses. Now, your task, your homework for this week is to concentrate on this area here. Yeah, so 1, 1A, 2 and 2A. What are you going to do? Well, for the week 3 live lecture, what I would like you to do is to complete steps 1, 1A and 2, 2A. So that means I want you to try and find some sources of information about the organisation you have chosen to look at for your assignment for this organisation, for this module. Remember, for the assessment, you can choose any organisation you like. Nike or Adidas are good organisations to choose because they produce annual reports and their websites have lots of information that you can use to help you with the assignment. So big international organisations, there's lots of information available, and Passport, Global Marketing Information Database, also has information on Nike and Adidas. If you wanted to go to a smaller organisation, an organisation based in Hong Kong, I've shown you some of the Passport reports for Hong Kong's external business analysis, for the kind of external pestle analysis, but for internal analysis you will need to try and find the information yourself, because I do not live in Hong Kong. I do not have access to all the reports that might be available on businesses operating in Hong Kong, just in Hong Kong. The other option is if you wanted to look at, for example, a professional football team that plays either in Europe or in England, you could use the FAME or Amadeus databases, which I talked about in Screencast 2 today, and in Screencast 6, which follows this lecture, there is also a screencast with instructions on how to find and use Amadeus and FAME through the Shoe Library Gateway. So once you've found the information, what I'd like you to do is to begin to try to complete one of the strengths and weaknesses template, and you need to look in this week's workbook. So the week 2 workbook has a link through to the strength and weaknesses template. I want you to choose one which you think is most relevant to your organisation and to begin to try to complete it. You will not be able to complete all of the template. I do not expect you to be able to complete all of the template by next week, but what I would like you to do is to begin to try so that I can understand if you are able to complete the template or if you have any problems or questions which you need to ask me about so that I can help. So that is the end of this screencast for this session. Thank you.